Hi friends, welcome back. My name's Angel, and as you can see, I've been adding little pops of spring into my home, coordinating wonderful florals all in whites and creams, and it's got me thinking, maybe you would like to thrift and DIY some things to refresh your home for spring. So let's see what we can get into today. Refreshing your home for the new season doesn't have to be anything dramatic, and it can be things that carry you on throughout the season that you're decorating with. As I'm out thrifting, sometimes I do like to pick up small pieces that really speak to the season, but I'm also always looking for things that speak to designer or more high-end looks on a budget. Refreshing your home for the seasons can be as simple as moving things around in your house. I do this frequently, and I'm sure if you've been with me for any time, you notice that you see similar things in different locations all the time. All of the stems that I added to my home this year were items that I have had for decades, but I'm also always on the hunt for things that I want to collect or things that I've fallen in love with, such as, you guessed it, another one of these beautiful Wolford hand-blown glass candles. So let's see what I brought home with me today. Well, you know for sure that I snatched up that Wolford candle. It was $4.99. The color was yellow that day, so I got it for $2.50. It simply needed a good clean and one of their glass stem wick holders, which I ordered offline for $8.99. So after cleaning it up and putting the new stem in, it was good to go. And I've added yet another high-end designer piece on a thrift store budget. Decorating seasonally doesn't have to mean changing everything. I found this beautiful glazed, very large pot at a local thrift store for $9.99. It was quite substantial, and I thought that the coloring of it would match another small pottery piece that I had already on our bar at home. One little tip I always like to offer is when you buy these pieces, make sure there's some kind of a felt or plastic foot on the bottom. That way when you put them on any piece of furniture or cabinetry, it slides around easily without scratching. So that was all this little gem needed, was a good clean and just some little felt pads on the bottom. And sure enough, she was a perfect match for another piece of pottery that I already had. And this will continue to be useful throughout the additional seasons. Even though we're headed into spring, we're still seeing some really unique colors. Shea McGee continues to show us some beautiful cocoa, khaki, and cappuccino colors, as well as the color of the year from Pantone being mocha mousse. So with these unique colors came an idea to transform our dining room table. This is the original fabric from our table, and it's almost 10 years old now. It's perfectly good condition intact, but more Tuscan colors of red and gold. So I thought that we could choose a new fabric just to breathe a little new life into our dining room chair. So what I did first was remove 4 small screws that actually held the base of the chair to the cushion. And once I had that removed, I simply began to lay out my new fabric. I chose a kind of cappuccino and brown colored small checkered print. Very traditional and classic, but right on trend for what we're seeing this year in colors and in pattern. The first thing I set about to do was remove the staples from the protective covering on the back of the chair. As you can see, I used a small little tool with a curved end and a hammer to tap underneath the existing staples and just lift those up. This is a very tedious process, but it is worth it. Once each of those staples is raised up, I simply pulled them out using a set of pliers. This is really important, I would suggest to you, because covering your work when you do a DIY is what really makes it look finished. It's those small details that give you a designer look and not just a, I did this by myself. So once I had that back removed, you can see the original fabric is still intact. I'm choosing, because this has never been recovered, to leave that original fabric on and not really have to mess with the sponging and all of the security strapping that you see here on the back of the chair, which is what gives it its firmness. Now, if this had been covered multiple times, I probably would have removed some of that excess fabric so that we don't start to get bunching. So once I laid out my fabric and cut it to size, I went back and double checked just to make sure before I begin the stapling process that each of those edges matches up appropriately. Once you begin the stapling process, pull your fabric up securely and firmly, not so tight that it squishes the foam underneath and changes the shape of your chair, but that it does pull it tight enough that you will not have any rippling or bunching in your fabric when someone scoots back on the chair or pulls the chair forward. I go through and I pull that taunt and get the shape I want with just a few staples here and there, and then I will go back and add additional staples just to ensure that the fabric is secure. You can see that once I've put those test staples in, if you will, I'm flipping that cushion over and just checking to make sure that I have good lines and that I don't have any rippling and that the pattern is in fact running the direction on the chair that I want. And I continue this process on the other two additional sides. You'll notice I'm not addressing the corners yet. I leave those for the very end. You can see that I'm beginning to get to the corner and I start to staple in tight. And what that means is I really come in close with those staples and make sure that at the closest point of the corner, it is very secured. If you're going to lose fabric in a recover, it's generally going to happen at the corner. So you want to make sure that this is very secure. Once I have those stapled in tight, I'm then going to go back in and cut off this dog-eared extra part of the fabric, because we don't want a bunch of fabric underneath there, so when we resecure the base that it bunches up or makes the chair cushion unlevel. And then I go back in again and I'm tightening up that fabric and pulling it into a tucked position so that all of that fabric lays down, and I'm just using my finger to push it under, and then I will secure it with 2 or 3 staples right on the very top, and then I cut off once again that additional fabric. So what I end up with is a very flat, almost pleated corner on the back side, but it gives you a very finished, round, smooth corner on the front side of the fabric. And here is where all of that tedious pulling of staples pays off. We now have that same black fabric to cover up all of our work. I simply laid back on the same piece of fabric that we took off, and I just restaple it to the back of the chair. This gives it a factory finish look. Now, if you are recovering a chair that you have thrifted, which I have done too, my entire dining room table is thrifted from Facebook Marketplace. You can buy this fabric to place on the underside of any cushions that you redo to give them that finished look. And then it comes time just to put our base back on. So I laid the cushion face down and then flipped the chair over so that I could actually see the underside to ensure that when I was screwing those same screws back down, that I had the cushion centered appropriately on the back of the chair. Then I took the time to go back through and tighten up all of the assembly screws in our chair with a small Allen wrench. And you can see we've used these chairs, so some of the legs were starting to get a bit wobbly, and I just wanted to make sure that they were very sound and secure, and this made the perfect time to do that. I love how the new fabric made the chairs look. I recovered all 6 chairs and the fabric was $25. So for less than $25, because I still have a full yard left, we went from a very Tuscan look to a more current and modernized look with a beautiful cappuccino and chocolate fabric. Since I've refinished our kitchen table, I've been wanting to hang a chandelier above it. I love all the inspiration our designer friends are giving me with these wonderful round hanging chandeliers in different fabrics and shapes. So I thought when I seen this one on Facebook Marketplace, it was perfect. It was $80 and it's still available on multiple websites for over $300. The color and the wood and the iron matched our lights hanging in our kitchen exactly. Above our kitchen table was a recessed or a candlelight, so I purchased a recessed can light conversion kit to switch it over. So we went about removing the can light and installing the new recessed light kit. Once that was complete, we wired up the chandelier, and I couldn't be more thrilled with the visual interest that it adds in the kitchen. Scent is another easy way to indicate a change of the season in your home, and we've been seeing a lot of these beautiful clear glass containers with candles for spring. And it reminded me of a beautiful glass jarred candle that I already had. I'm sure you have a candle that looks just like this. It burnt straight down and it left a ton of wax around the edges. Put them in a pot of water and let them boil like you've seen me do before until the wax is completely melted. Remove the old wick and simply place a new wick inside the candle. Let it set back up, and as you can see, I still have half of a jar of this candle left by simply repurposing the old wax that didn't burn. Thank you for sharing your time with me today, and as always, remember, stay on the journey as we continue making our way home. Until next time, bye-bye.